Great morning, everyone. How are you? I hope you are in a good condition. Today, we are going to discuss the age of reason. What comes into your mind when you hear the phrase, the age of reason? Do you have any idea or any thoughts? The Age of Reason is a movement in Europe, particularly in England. It is the new world that embraced scientific discovery, personal liberty, religious tolerance, and the notion that reason was the most important elements in our lives. The Age of Reason is also known as the Enlightenment. Enlightenment is the name given to an important period in the history of Western civilization that followed the Renaissance. The Enlightenment occurred during the mid-1600s up till the 1700s and was the time when human ability to reason was glorified. The word enlightenment means a time of illumination. The era was given the name Enlightenment or the Age of Reason because it was the time when influential group of scholars, writers, artists, and scientists actively sought to use the clear light of reason and its rational thoughts to rid the world of superstition and ignorance. As a result of their efforts, tremendous improvements in the understanding of mathematics and science occurred. Old and new ideas regarding basic human rights and democracy were developed and serve as major inspiration to revolutionaries in both America and France. Fun facts. Did you know that Francis Bacon and Rene Descartes are the fathers of Enlightenment? So here's the story behind that. Near the end of the Renaissance, during the first half of the 17th century, two men, Francis Bacon and Rene Descartes, each published important books that came to inspire generations of scientists and scholars. In fact, many historians consider these two men to be the fathers of Enlightenment. Francis Bacon was born in England in 1561, and it was during his day as a student at Cambridge University Trinity College, and many of these important new ideas began to take shape. Bacon came to believe that science could free ordinary people from ignorance and allow them to be more productive and comfortable lives. But he knew that in order for this to happen, the mind of human beings first had to be freed from the careless and uncritical ways of thinking that they were prevalent at that time. And that was why Francis Bacon promoted a rational approach to science based on experimentation and deriving a generalized conclusion based on careful observation. Meanwhile, across the English Channel in France, the brilliant French mathematician Rene Descartes published a book that proclaimed that reason and mathematics were all that one really needed to discover truth in sciences. Descartes likened the universe to a perfect clock that had been designed and built by a master clock maker. Descartes was a pioneer in mathematically formulating the basic laws that govern the movements of things, from the rolling of the ocean waves to the spinning of the windmills, and he invented a new type of mathematics called analytic geometry. The ideas promoted by Descartes and Bacon proved to be extremely important because they led to the development of what is called the scientific methods, a series of simple rational steps that can be found to help solve even the most complicated scientific problems. London remains to be the center of 18th century literature. From the medieval times onwards, London was the center of all kinds of major activities which were happening in England, and for the major audience of all kinds of literary and non-literary activities. It becomes the polite society. The writers of this period begin to write for a very civilized urban group whose education they could almost take for granted. The audience was very limited, and also the subject matter was presented in a way to cater only to this particular elite and urban audience. Thus, literature taking a very urban shift from this point in time, aristocracy begins to be replaced by the gentility and wealth. People begin to move away from the old idealisms, and merchants and tradesmen, whom up till were just seen as factors contributing to the commercial aspects of English life, start playing an important role in the literary and cultural fashioning of England. And Glorious Revolution also played a significant role in shaping this period because it marked the victory of the town of the court and the celebration of the triumph of Parliament. Parliament played a very significant role in the shaping of the politics and indirectly in the shaping of the literature and the other cultural forms of the Britain. Poetry from this point of time was no longer for the common man. It became a civilized activity which was more socially acceptable than in the preceding ages, but however the narrow limits imposed on the audience and also on matters of composition, it also led to a narrowness in terms of its audience and its reach. Although a lot of positive things were happening in this period, art and literature were getting restricted to a certain extent. This period saw a people with the moral tendency towards a moral regeneration. People were fed up with the kind of indecent literature which was getting presented, the moral degradation, the celebration of anarchy. They craved a little normalcy in the London circles, especially in the forms of arts and literature. This tendency proved fruitful in the way in which the literature emerged in the 18th century. Looking at the literary features of the age, it was primarily literature of intelligence. The influence of classical age was very notable. Latin was again revived, and lots of translations found their way in the London circles. But writers, people of the same time remained quiet, indifferent towards the beauty of nature, and the focus mainly on descriptive and meditative kind of poetry rather than the poetry enjoyed by the Elizabeths and which followed in Romantic age. Encyclopedia is one of the publications during the Age of Reason. According to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, encyclopedia is a work that contains information on all branches of knowledge, or treats comprehensively a particular branch of knowledge, usually in articles arranged alphabetically, often by subject. Denis Diderot published an Encyclopedia of Sciences in the 1700s. This was the first text of its kind to explore both scientific discoveries and scientific method. More publications during the Age of Reason. Adam Smith published The Wealth of Nations in 1776, a text which encouraged meritocracy and suggested a laissez-faire attitude towards moral sets and economies. It became the foundation for the modern capitalist system. The principle is, if ligne alone, the market will sort itself. Another one is the dictionary. Samuel Johnson published the first comprehensive English dictionary, and it is considered one of the most important feats of scholarship in English academia. It took him 9 years to write and is a riot to read. So according to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, Dictionary is a reference book that contains words listed in alphabetical order and that gives information about the words, meanings, forms, pronunciation, and etc. Now let's proceed to another publication, which is Biography. Biography is the story of a real person's life written by someone other than that person. So Boswell's Life of Johnson is written by James Boswell. He wrote the life of Samuel Johnson in the 1700s, and it became the model for all modern biographies. It was only at this point that the biography as a literary form became popular in Western literature. Okay, now let's move on to scientific discoveries and inventions during the Age of Reason. Year 1687 is the Newton's three universal laws of motion. Year 1714, Fahrenheit mercury thermometer, the flying shuttle loom, the steam engine, the cotton gin. Year 1752, Ben Franklin, the lightning rod. Year 1781, William Herschel discovers Uranus. These are the philosophy during the Age of Reason. First is, people became less focused on the divine right of kings and more focused on individual rights. Second, people used reason and scientific method to explain their world. Third, people believed that reason could improve society. Fourth, people believe in religious tolerance and individual religious practice. And lastly, in the late 1700s, Mary Wollstonecraft wrote A Vindication on the Rights of Women, widely regarded as the first feminist work ever published. Now let's proceed to travelogues. Travelogue is a speech, movie, or piece of writing about someone's experiences while traveling. In the 1600s and 1700s, travelogues were another form of non-fiction text that were very popular. As European empires expanded, people were anxious to know more about the world around them. So one of the writer of travelogue is Jonathan Swift. Swift's novel Gulliver's Travels is a fictionalized and absurdist travelogue in the style of 18th century. In it, he chronicles the adventures of Lemuel Gulliver, who finds adventure on the high seas and learns a great deal about the world around him. Swift's literary style is decidedly 18th century with the length sentences, long on detail, and many subtle references to the political situations in Europe at that time.